Hello, hello. Welcome to Tween Talk Live. How can you guide your tween to shift from relying on your help to becoming an independent thinker who can solve problems on their own? How can you do it? How can you guide your tween to shift from relying on your help to becoming an independent thinker who can solve problems on their own? I'm Marina Gabor, founder of the Tween Talk Empowering Moms to Raise Independent Kids community and the Life Skills Club, which will be opening on September 8th in less than a month. My daughters, they're all in their late teens, and we have had to go through this shift from them relying on me to solve all their problems to becoming more independent in their thinking. So today I'm going to be sharing 3 strategies to boost your tween's critical thinking skills without adding more work for you. Now, that's great because who needs more work? Parenting is so much work already, and we don't need the extra work. But we would like this benefit. So at the end, I will tell you a little bit more about the Life Skills Club that's opening in less than a month. But before we dive in, I'd like to know if you are joining me here live, please type #live in the chat. So glad you're here. If you are watching the replay, please type #replay. I can go back and I can see who watched the replay. I can reach out and say hello, and feel free to answer or ask any questions in the chat, and I can get back to you. So here's what we want to know. How would your life change? How would your life change if your tween could solve some of their problems on their own? So what would it mean for you if they were able to solve some of their own problems? If they have the critical skills to arrive at, reasonably good decisions, even if they weren't the exact decisions that you would make, they're still good decisions. How would your life change for the better? What would that mean for you? Well, today we're going to dive into 3 ways that you can boost your tween's critical thinking skills so they can make some of those decisions on their own and make better decisions on their own. And all it will require from you is jumping into teachable moments as they happen in your daily life. And I'm going to show you what some of those teachable moments might look like so you can recognize them and capitalize on them. So let's get right into it. The first one is ask open-ended questions. Ask open-ended questions. When I first started asking like these open-ended questions, meaning they have to answer more than yes or no, my tweens, they didn't always know what to do. I don't know. Okay, fair enough. And so either that or silence, blank face, like, I don't know. So I was like quick to jump in and share what I thought right away if they didn't have an answer. I wasn't super comfortable with that silence. So you ask a question and then there's that awkward silence that just stretches out and you're going, I don't have time for this. Maybe you can relate. Let me know in the chat. Ever happened to you? Well, my brain moves super fast. Maybe yours does too. I thought theirs would. I thought, man, I know the answer to this question that I'm asking them, therefore they should know the answer. I know, it sounds ridiculous when you actually say it. But turns out that you'll get way more responses than you ever imagined if you wait, if you let them think it through. Now, to be fair, sometimes they weren't actually formulating an answer. So I just sat there and I thought, oh, I'm being so patient and I'm waiting. And I'm just like, oh, what are they going to say? I was sure it would be amazing based on how long it was taking them to formulate this answer. No, Nope. When I finally asked if they needed a bit more time to think about it, it turns out they weren't thinking about it at all. So we might need to give some verbal cues that we're actually waiting and expecting some sort of a response, even if it is, I don't know. I don't know is a valid response, especially during their tweens. We're asking them to start thinking critically, thinking differently, thinking things through. They don't know how to do that. We're going to teach them how to do that, and then they'll be able to start formulating some answers. So I discovered a few ways to make open-ended questions more successful. First of all, ask yourself, does my tween actually have the capacity to answer the question? Do they have the knowledge, the experience, the vocabulary, and are they comfortable answering this question? Can they do it? No point in asking the question if they don't actually have the capacity to answer that question yet. But when you think about the question and you go, oh, I don't think they can answer that, then that's an opportunity to think, okay, well, what do they need to learn? What do I need to teach them, expose them to, whatever, in order for them to have some experiences to form an opinion, to have some knowledge to form an opinion, to come up with an answer to this open-ended question. Secondly, when are you asking the question? If they're stressed about something unrelated to the question you're asking, or you're on your way out the door and you throw out this open-ended question, you're setting yourself and your tween up for extreme frustration. They're thinking about something else. They're not trying to formulate an answer to this question that you've asked that's forcing them to critically think, which they are learning how to do, but it's not just quick like that. So you'll want an answer, they won't have the capacity, and it will be frustrating. So we need to be intentional about when we ask the question. And the third thing that I realized about this asking open-ended questions is they need to get value from answering the question. They do. What's in it for them if they can answer this question? They'll lean more into it. They'll think more about it if the outcome to that question directly affects them in a way that matters to them, even if you think, well, it should matter to them. It doesn't matter if you think it should matter to them. If it doesn't actually matter to them, you're going to get less of a response. If it's just a hypothetical question, something they don't care about, just to practice some critical thinking, either you call it that and say, oh, we're going to practice critical thinking. This is what we're doing. You set it up as a practice. Everybody knows what the expected outcome is. Okay, fine. But if you actually want them to answer a question and you want to know what they think, make it about something that they care about. For example, what time do they think they should go to bed? So when they're in their tweens, bedtime comes up as a point of conflict. They want to go to bed later. They have younger siblings that are going to bed earlier. You want to go to bed early. How does this work? Great thing to have a conversation about. And you can have an open-ended question. What time do you think you should go to bed? They can't answer yes or no. They're going to be invested because it directly relates to them. They're also going to feel excited that they get a say. They're going to feel more empowered. There's going to be more buy-in to whatever the outcome of that conversation is. Or why should they get a hamster? Or anything else that they currently care about. They're going to be more invested. They're going to engage whatever critical thinking skills they currently have to come out with an answer that is in their favor, and then you can have a discussion. So look for opportunities to ask open-ended questions. Make them a regular part of your day. The benefit is not only will your tween improve their critical thinking skills, which means they're going to make better decisions, you'll have to make less decisions. You can trust them to make some of those low stakes decisions where you don't really care one way or the other what happens, but they are really invested. They can start taking those decisions off of you. Because let's be real, decision fatigue is a real thing. We have young kids before they hit their tweens, before you start transferring some of that decision making, it all is on your shoulders. At least I know I experienced some relief as they were able to make more decisions. I'm like, okay, I don't have to make every single decision. We can make frameworks for decisions. We can discuss how we're going to make decisions, and I can pass some of that on to my tweens. So, number 2. So, we were asking open-ended questions, and now we want to teach problem decomposition. What the heck is problem decomposition? So this is a problem-solving technique where we're breaking down a complex problem into these smaller, more manageable components so they can tackle this big challenge step by step by step and avoid feeling overwhelmed. This is a critical thinking skill that we can teach our tweens, and we don't have to set aside time to do it. If you're homeschooling your tween, you know the burden of helping them figure out what to do every single day. If they're in public school, there's the challenge of keeping up with assignments, due dates, all of these things. And it seems like you're having to step by step by step every single day doing it for them because it seems easier and less frustrating than having them try to do it. But I'm here to say it is worth the effort, even as their brain is developing and maybe they don't 100% have all of the cognitive function they need to be able to break down a large task into smaller tasks. Yet we're setting up these habits, these routines. We're teaching them the skill, and as their brain develops, they're going to take more and more of that on, and it's just going to seem normal. So there's a couple of ways that you can approach this. You can either take that large task and break it down, make a list of every single thing that needs to be done in order to achieve that task. And then you've got your huge checklist, and then you just go through, okay, what's the first thing? Do that. Next thing, do that. But the benefit of that large list is you can also jump around a little bit. Go, oh, okay, well, I could do this, because it might not be completely sequential as you're writing it down. Now, the second thing, or the second way that you could approach this, is just at every point ask, what is the very next step I need to take on the path to completing this task? Which is essentially what you're asking yourself as you're making that long list. But in this case, you're not making the list. Maybe that's too overwhelming. Maybe you can't even think that far, or thinking through that process is too much. Maybe that's too much for your tween. Maybe you don't work that way. No problem. So then practice helping your tween ask, what is the very next action, the very next step I need to take? What do I need to do next on the way? Excuse me, on the way to completing this task. It must be a concrete action, something they can actually, I need to write the first sentence. Okay, you write the first sentence. What's the very next thing I need to do? I need to write the next sentence. Okay, maybe you break it down that much. Either way, you'll end up with a completed task at the end if you go through the list or if you're asking the questions. When we started with my daughters, I showed them how to take their curriculum textbook, because we're homeschooling. And initially, I would break it down. I would give them a list. I would show them what to do. And then I showed them, this is how I break it down. This is how I get the list. So now you know what to do. And then I said, okay, So here's what needs to happen. Here's the time it needs to happen in. Make an effort, come up with a plan. What kind of a plan? So then they would make a plan. They would take, here's what needs to be done. Here's the time it needs to be done in. Break it up. They'd come and show it to me. We could have a conversation. So I'm not just throwing them into it. It's a progression. But now we decide on the curriculum. They get the books. They plan it out. We look at it. I'm like, okay, you're going to be done by this time. Yep. And they're able to manage their time. They're in their late teens. But we've been doing this all through the tweens. Just practice, but not extra practice. Practice just like in daily life, as we have to do this anyway. As the parent, I'm doing this anyway. So I'm going to bring my tween alongside. It's not any extra work, really. And showing them what we're doing. So as you encounter problems, you're taking the time to teach your tween how to break them down into manageable parts. What are we going to do step by step? And over time, they'll start using that technique on small problems. They're like, oh, okay, I know how to do this. Let me break it down. What's the very next step? Okay, what's the very next step? And it will just be a normal way for them to deal with problems. All right, number 3. Here we go. Expose them to diverse perspectives. How is this helping them develop their critical thinking if we're just like exposing them? When my girls were young, we lived on an acreage and we interacted with, various groups. We were part of quizzing club and church clubs and so on and so forth. But I wanted them to experience diverse perspectives. And so we could have an opportunity to speak into those experiences to help them navigate differences. So this came about through deliberately cultivating relationships with people of various ethnicities, watching movies together, discussing different worldviews presented in those shows. Again, age appropriate, but speaking into that. So we didn't let them watch shows without discretion, but we were watching things together, discussing what was going on. And this became a fantastic way to expose them to diverse viewpoints in a safe environment where they could ask questions that would come out in the real world. Those questions would come out awkward and not quite appropriate necessarily. The phrasing wouldn't be quite right. But in the home environment, where it's a safe place, where you're nurturing this critical thinking, the set of critical thinking skills, then that's an opportunity to shape how we ask the questions so that people will respond favorably. And it's also an opportunity to shape that worldview for them to decide, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm about. And they can also be kind and compassionate to others with differing points of view. And they're curious about different points of view, but they know who they are. They have a solid stance on who they are and what they're about. So you can go on and do the same thing as you go about your life. Again, it doesn't have to take more time. You're going to get into situations. There are diverse opinions. Take the opportunity to open those conversations with your kids age appropriately. And of course, in a safe environment. If you're out in the public, maybe not a good time to start diving in. You get back in the vehicle, you go, oh, okay, so what do we think about this? Talking it through. See what their thoughts are on the matter. You have that privilege and opportunity to guide that conversation. And it's going to be this ongoing conversation as you go through the tween years and you build up trust. They know that this is a safe place to figure out, what do I think about these things? And my first response might not be my final response. I'm like exploring, what do I think? And sometimes you have to verbalize it and get it out there so you can look at it and go, no, I don't really think that at all. It sounded okay in my head, and now I'm saying it and it's not good. Or it sounded kind of weird and now it sounds great. Or yes, I agree. This is what I think. So if you foster that safe environment at home to have those conversations, to explore these diverse perspectives, that is how we're developing critical thinking, and it's helping them develop their character, understand who they are, what they're about. So even if they're out and about and there's people with diverse perspectives, they know who they are, but they can be kind and compassionate to people with different perspectives. So to recap, 3 strategies. Number 1, ask open-ended questions. Number 2, teach problem-solving techniques. Remember that decomposition of the problem? And number 3, we are going to expose them to diverse perspectives. So now, if you are looking for support for helping your tween develop their critical thinking skills, look no further than the Life Skills Club, opening September 8th. More information is on the way. It is a weekly live online club for tweens to learn step by step how to improve critical thinking, communication, organization, and of course, those are the broad categories. There's like micro skills under each of those. It's a fun place to learn and grow with other tweens and be guided, and then they can take those and practice at home. Like I said, open September 8th. Watch for information in the next couple of weeks. Help is on the way. If you're interested, type life skills, #life skills in the chat, and I will make sure that you get the information as soon as it comes out. So thank you for joining me for this episode of Tween Talk Live. I hope it has been helpful. And until next time, keep talking with your tween.